Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to Mentally Me. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back. I really appreciate you guys. You're gonna notice today that A, I look like crap, and B, I'm a lot less energetic. Well, than I usually am anyway. That's because I'm both physically and mentally exhausted. I've been sick for the last couple of days. This week and the last weekend has been really bad. All I wanted was to sleep. There was a lot of crying and a lot of me getting annoyed by people who were asking what was wrong and why I was having a bad day. For those of you who don't have depression or anxiety or any mental illness, sometimes you just have a bad day. There doesn't need to be a reason for it. They just happen. Just as some people don't know why they have anxiety or depression. They just do, and that's okay. Others, like myself, know exactly where it comes from. So I really wanted my next video to be all about my animals, be really fun. It won't be, because I feel like I really should explain why I need this channel. Like, I touched on it a little bit, but I need to get it out of my chest, because I find talking helps so much more, and it's been rough, so this is why I want to talk about it. I will warn you now, it is a disturbing story, not one that everybody can handle hearing. So if you're someone who thinks they can't handle it, I'm not going to be upset if you skip either the entire video or to the end. I'll try to add a time code for you. So we're going to go way back to 1995 when I was just 4 years old. At that time I was a normal kid. I had mom, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole thing, and we were all pretty close. My mom was the youngest of 5 kids. This story involves my mom's eldest sister, and I'm going to refer to her as Anne for this. Hi, Gertie. Anne was like a second mother to me. If I wasn't at home or at a friend's house, I was at her house on the farm that my uncle worked on. Jesus, did I ever love that farm. Anyway, we were so close that I even called her Aunt Mom. So, my aunt had 8 children. One unfortunately died as a baby. And admittedly, I learned this much, much later that Anne was not actually a good mom. All of her children were at one point taken away from her and put in foster homes. 2 were adopted out, and she eventually got all but those 2 back. I don't really know when. I was really young at the time. So the last one to come home is the second youngest, or I think he's the second youngest anyway. We're gonna call him Chris. He was around 16 at the time. Now, Chris had some issues. Chris was diagnosed as schizophrenic early on, and he never took his medication. He ended up being one of my favorite cousins, and he'd always want to play Nintendo with me, watch movies. At 4 years old, you don't think any different, obviously. Now, I'm not going to go into detail. For one thing, it's hard to talk about, and for another, I know it's hard for people to hear, and I don't want to upset people any more than they're already going to be, because I expect quite a few upset people. But the long and the short of it is that Chris raped me for 2 years. Every time I would visit, which was often, especially in the summer, I'd spend entire weekends, entire weeks. Basically, if I wasn't in school, I was there. But why did it go on for 2 years? Why didn't I say anything? I see a lot of questions from people opposing the Me Too movement, and for me, it's a really simple answer. I was 4 years old when it started. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what was wrong, and according to my therapist, I did block out the trauma, and that's why I didn't tell anyone. When I was 12, my cousin, Chris's sister, we'll call her Ginger, called my mother freaking out because he got drunk and he told her what he'd done. All it took was my mother questioning me to bring most of it back. I didn't get it all of it back until much later, but enough came back that I was able to tell her what he did and what I remembered at that time anyway, which wasn't a whole lot. I can remember everything, almost everything about that moment. I was in the bathroom getting ready for a shower. Mom came in. I remember the crying that followed, the officer showing up at the door. I remember her long brown hair. The children's aid lady that came, and I remember being told that because of the location of the farm, we had to go to another city to talk to the officers in the jurisdiction. I can remember the interview with the officers in that station. One telling me to call him Officer Skunk because he had black hair, but he had a head injury, and so one part of his hair was white, just like this one spot. I remember them giving me a stuffed animal for being brave, which I still have. It's in my closet somewhere, otherwise I would show it to you. They set me up with 10 sessions with a counselor, and I remember meeting with the judge to tell him what I wanted them to do about Chris. Now, by then I was 13 years old, and I told him that I wanted him locked up forever. That man looked right at me and told me that he couldn't do that. He couldn't lock up a child rapist for the rest of his life, and instead he served 6 months in prison. 6 months for 2 years of raping a child. That's not even the worst part, though. I found out from my mother, because they didn't require me to be in the courtroom at all, that my aunt knew. She knew what her son did and didn't do anything to stop it. In fact, she tried to hide him. Sorry for the jump, guys. I had to stop. Anyway, when I was about 20, I found out the full extent of what he'd actually done. I had memories, or partial ones, but my mom told me shortly after my birthday that he had called her after he'd confessed to his sister, and he called her to tell her everything he did in detail. I wish he hadn't told me, because it triggered another round of memories coming back that night, and they were just as bad as he claimed. So bad that I could hear everything, from the hockey game playing on the TV to the smells, tastes, everything. When my mother told me about this phone call, I was heading into my second year of university. I had an apartment with roommates, and I was finally living like an adult. Except I wasn't living like a normal university student. I had spent hours, days, locked in my room, where I would study, stay away from everyone, and I would only come out to go to class. I hated crowds, I hated parties, and I was alone. I had 3 roommates, but I was alone. February of that year, things came to a head. I had enough. And I packed up my room so my parents wouldn't have to. Wrote a note, and at 3 a.m. intended to jump off the bridge by our building. I didn't know how to swim, and the water was freezing. For some reason, I didn't jump. I don't know why, I didn't do it. I never told my parents or anyone else. Not until I was defending a cousin years later. Around the time I was 25, he was going through some things and nearly killed himself. And his girlfriend's dad stood in our living room and freaked out on him, calling him a coward, among other things, and it all just kind of spilled out. I carried on after that like nothing had happened, but at my mom's encouragement, I finally saw my family doctor. I told him what was going on, and he told me to go read a book. Not very helpful. In June of 2018, a month after I turned 27, I had a complete mental breakdown. Things were bad at my job, and I thought I was going to be alone forever, having never been on a date. Still haven't. My doctor finally got the hint when I had a complete breakdown in his office, and he finally listened. He knew I was in trouble. He diagnosed me with major depression and general anxiety disorder, and pulled me out of work, put me on medication, and got me into therapy. I have spent just over a year trying to fix myself, and now I've started this channel for so many reasons, and I want to be able to document what I hope will be a big change. I need to learn what it means to be me. I've hidden in the shadows for so long, and so many people told me to just get over it, family included. I'm trying, and I'm going to be trying for a very long time. I'm going back to school, I'm going to get healthy, and I'm going to try for once to be happy, because I haven't been happy for a very long time. So that's it for this week. Thank you for sticking around if you're still watching. I know it got pretty long, and I got pretty weepy. I didn't realize it would be so hard to actually verbalize it. Next week will be more fun, I promise. And in saying that, I'm going to go now and wash my face and play with my parrots because I kind of need it. I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.